I started working on this 12-inch radial arm saw yesterday. First thing I did was start cleaning it up. I've had this for quite a while, but I've never used it. It's been stored, and I'd sprayed it down with corrosion proofing, and then it was coated with a lot of dirt and dust. So I spent a while with some paint thinner and rags, cleaning all the dirt, most of the dirt and stuff off of it. These rails here support the table. This one over here got bent. Well, I tried to straighten it out a little bit. I got it straightened out so it's flat across this way. It's still bent this way, but that really won't affect it. I had my granddaughter build a rolling cart for this, so I brought it up here to see if I could put it on there, and I actually got it on, but it doesn't fit. But anyway, I got it to sit on there, and that was a good thing because now I can kind of move it around. It's okay. She did the best she could. I make it work. So anyway, I just put those arms back on there. That has to be leveled up for the table to mount on it. So that's the next procedure. I spent quite a bit of time. I downloaded the manual for it off of the internet and sat over and read it quite a bit. And it's pretty much the same thing as what my 10-inch was. Not quite exactly the same thing, but pretty close to the same thing. But it been a while since I set the 10-inch one up the last time, so it was good to have a refresher. Well, what you do on this is you use the saw head, the power head, or the motor itself for the gauge on that. You've got a center support right here that has what we call a Tinnerman nut, but a spring nut on it that's pushed on there, and everything gets registered off of this point right here, off of that Tinnerman. Well, and then this bolts on back here in the back, and that's got to be adjusted up so that it's flat across here, or that this back point is level with this point here. So again, the way you do that, let's see if I can remember how to do that now. Let's see here, how to do that. There we go, that tip rotates it that way. Not quite the same as my 10-inch one. There's a little bit of differences on it, so we're going to have to figure that out. This knob here, just this back and forth. This knob here, and this lever here releases it for going this way and this way. Well, this should be the pin that pivots it back and forth. There it goes, okay. And that's right, it was just stuck, just hadn't been moved for 100 years. Okay, so that's that. So now, raise this up and adjust that so that that shaft off that motor is right on there, and adjust that down to where it just touches. This, that was why I needed to get that Tinnerman, that nut right there, so that you can adjust that so that it just touches that nut right there. Alright, then we go back here and raise this back side up where that just touches. Okay, then come back out here, check that, make sure, because sometimes when you adjust one, the other one comes out of adjustment. So now I tighten those nuts up there. Alright, now do the same thing over here. This table, raise this one up. Now this one's going to change because I can't get all the way over the back end of the table on this one. Alright, now we'll go to the front. Okay, that's pretty good there. I'll tighten these up just like that. Now I'll do the same thing on the other side. So there's stops in this radial arm saw to keep it from going all the way over to the side to getting all the way back to the back corner of those braces. Okay, that front one wanted to pull down a little bit when I tightened it up, probably because this brace is bent right there. So I had to fool with that a little bit to get it to fit. But everything is good there. Good there. Still good there. Okay. So there's only 4 bolts, 1 bolt on this one, but this one rests here on the front on this brace. And there's 2 bolts each on these brackets here. And there's holes for 2 more on each one of them. I think what I'm going to do is go down and dig through my bolts and stuff and find some more bolts and put in there. Just if I start doing some heavy timbers, long boards and stuff like that in there to do rip cuts on and cross cuts or whatever, there's going to be a lot of weight on here. So maybe I'll get some more bolts and put down on there to make sure that that stays, that doesn't move. I never had any trouble with the 10-inch one, and I've done a lot of long boards and stuff on it, but some's good, more's better. Well, anyway, that's set up for a table. Now I got to make a table. Oh, it's got a little sharp on that corner there. That's why I cut myself. I run my hand through there. I might go get a file and just knock those corners off right there, so they're not quite so sharp. Anyway, now I got to figure out what I'm going to do with it for a table. I've got a piece of medium density fiber board upstairs, but it's only 3/4 inch. I think it's 3/4 inch thick. And the table on this 10-inch saw is a good inch thick. I could take that one and double it up, glue 2 pieces together, and that would work out okay. Or I could go down and see if I can get a piece of 1 or 1.25 inch floor underlayment and make a table out of that. I have to think about that a little bit. Well, I'm trying to do a little bit of calculating here on how to build a table for that saw. Of course, one's not available through Sears anymore, so that's not really an option. Well, I've got to try to build one. Like I said earlier, I'm trying to decide whether to use some MDF that I have or to go get some thick plywood. I'm still not 100% sure what I'm going to do yet. I've got a piece of MDF here. It's 8 foot long. Parts of it are 24 inches wide. I'd used MDF to make patterns to mold the kydex for the fuselage on the Super Cub airplane when I put the new fuselage on there. One edge of that is rounded over, and I'd use that to form the kydex. It's not as thick as what I would like, but I was kind of thinking maybe I might cut 2 pieces, sandwich them together to make 1 piece. I was kind of thinking about going to the lumber yard and maybe getting a piece of 1 inch or 1 1/8 inch floor underlayment. I don't know how much that'd cost me. I don't want to get into this too far. So I can kind of use this 10-inch radial arm saw as a pattern. That's an MDF table, and that's thicker. That's about 1 inch thick on that. And basically there's 3 pieces to that table. Actually, I guess you'd say there's 4 pieces to the table. There's the main table, and then behind it is a fence, and then there's another table that's about 8 inches wide, and then there's another piece that's about 1.5 inches or 2 inches wide. And the idea is that for cross-cutting, you want the fence out as far as possible so that the blade is back behind the fence when you're doing a cross-cut. And for ripping, some ripping you can just use in that position for ripping, but if you wanted to rip something wide, then you can move the fence back between the rear 2 pieces. So the middle piece there, the 8-inch wide one, would butt up against the front fence, the front table, and the fence would be behind it and then clamped on with a piece behind that, which gives you a larger table surface area for ripping down wider stock like sheet goods or something like that. Well, anyway, I can use that as kind of a pattern, a diagram, and of course that table doesn't fit the 12-inch saw. So anyway, I've got the saw set up right now with it back as far as it'll go, thinking maybe I could figure out where the fence went. The fence would go right towards the front of the blade as it's sitting, and that's kind of lines up to where the 2 rear holes are for the table. Well, anyway, I'm going to get a tape measure and measure some things out. It looks like maybe my table might be 24 inches deep, and then I have to figure out how far I want it to stick out past the frame rails. With a 10-inch table on the radial arm saw, sticks out 7.5 inches past the end of the frame rails there, and I can use that as a reference. And then I don't know how far to either side, but this table could be bigger, especially if I laminate 2 pieces together and make a thicker table out of it. It'd be stouter. Being as it's a 12-inch saw instead of a 10-inch saw, it could stand to have a bigger table on it. Anyway, I got some calculations to do. There are no dimensions for the table anywhere that I can find in the book or anything like that. I looked yesterday and I couldn't find any dimensions anywhere, so I'll just have to come up with something. Well, I've just been doing some calculating on what I want for a table on that thing, and I was taking some comparative dimensions off of the 10-inch saw and kind of transcribing them over onto this saw. I wanted to figure out how far I needed the rear of the main table to be out in front of the saw blade itself, where the fence is going to be in the front fence position. So I kind of did some eyeballing there and a little bit of measuring. I measured from how far the column on the 10-inch saw was from the front of the fence, or the rear of the front table. Transferred that over to the column on the 12-inch saw, put both saws back in their rear positions, one for a crosscut, and took a couple measurements there. Anyway, I took the level and laid out there. I put it 1 1/8 inches back from that rear hole, the front face of the level 1 1/8 inches back from that rear hole, and then measured from the back of the level forward. And I decided that I want the table to be about 22 inches from the back of the table to the front of the table, and then started doing some comparisons of the width of the 2 tables from the frame rails, the positions where they're anchored down. Well, the 10-inch saw table is 18.25 inches from front to back, and it's 40 inches from side to side, and I'm looking at around 48 inches from side to side for the 12-inch table and 22 inches from front to back. So looking at this piece of MDF that I have, that thing is 25 inches wide on the one end and 50 inches to where it's cut, but then it's got a cut out of it on this side, and it's only down to 18 inches or so, and it's a tapered cut, it's not a square cut. So I could only get one piece out of that. I couldn't get 2 pieces out of it to do like I was thinking about doing it, and doubling that up. So that's not going to work. So I guess we're back to square one here now. I gotta think about going to the lumber yard and maybe getting a thick piece of plywood. Or I could get another piece of MDF. Actually, I've got some melamine here. I could glue a piece of melamine to that, but I'm not sure I want to do that either. I'll have to think about that. I could laminate the MDF to the melamine and use that for a table. Melamine makes a nice slippery top on it, so the wood slides on it easy when you're pushing through for ribbon and stuff. And it's a nice white, light colored table. Oh shoot, now I got another thing to think about. Doggone it, I shouldn't have thought about that. Okay, back to the thought process now. My brain's starting to smoke. Well, it was a pretty nice day today. Sunshiny this morning early. Actually, the stars were out early this morning, and then blue sky this morning. Didn't really get any sun. We've had a couple of fairly nice days now without rain, which has been unusual so far. Had a little bit of this sloppy wet snow here that was just soggy as it could be the other day, and there wasn't enough of it to plow to clean off the driveway. Well, anyway, it froze and it's crunchy right now and a little bit slippery. I wanted to take advantage of it, the nice weather, and work on the cabin. I've got a mini split heat pump that I've got here earlier this fall that I wanted to get mounted up. And the weather has just been too bad to work on that. I got to start on it today. Got to wait now for my wife to bring some bolts home to put up the 2x6s onto the wall. Sounds like she's just coming home now. And she happened to be in town, so I had her stop there at the hardware store and get what I wanted there. So while I was waiting for her, I decided I'd come up here and work on the radial arm saw project a little bit. We don't have a whole lot of daylight left. I wasn't sure if she was going to get back before it got dark or not. Looks like she did, but anyway, while it's daylight, I want to work on this. And I went ahead and decided to try to glue these two pieces of material up that I've got. I've got a 3/4 inch sheet or half a sheet of MDF, medium density fiberboard, and then I've got this melamine. And melamine is basically particle board with a hard face on one face of it. Now I thought it just had a hard face on one face, but it turns out it's got a hard face on two sides of it, so I'm not sure if that's going to glue up or not. I might have to take the sander and sand down one face of it to glue up to the other one. I can get this cut, and then I can get it glued up, and I won't be able to finish it until once the glue dries. So once I get this thing set up, it'll have to set up overnight and get the glue dried on it. So I got sawhorses out, and I put a couple of 2x on there to support those. I've got my saw and everything set up. Now I decided I was going to make that table 48 inches wide. Well, I went ahead and measured this out 50 inches, and then I got to thinking, well, maybe I'll make that 50 inches wide or so. Well, anyway, I added a couple more inches onto it. I can trim that off when I need to, but big saw and a big table would be a good thing on there. Break down sheet goods or ripping boards. I use my radial arm saw a lot to edge boards. The longer the table on that for feeding it, the better. Anyway, I'll go ahead and cut this off. I've got my saw set up so it just goes through both layers of this. And now what I need to do is get my belt sander and rough up one edge or one face of that melamine so that glue will stick to it, and then I'll glue those two pieces together and let them set overnight. But right now I'm going to take advantage of the daylight while I've got it and go finish putting those 2x6s up on the cabin. Well, I brought those two pieces of wood in here, let them dry a little bit, or warm up a little bit. I washed them down with some paint thinner and just got all the dust and stuff off of them, or as much as I could, and then let them dry out. And I spread some glue on both of them, put them all both together, and I got them clamped down. I got a whole bunch of what is euphemistically called gravity clamps. So now I got to let it sit for at least overnight, and I can work on that table some more, finish it up, rip it down to the finished size, set it up on the framework there, and figure out where the holes go, drill holes and stuff to get ready to mount it up. I'm going to have to do the same thing for the secondary table, the second and third tables too.